If summer heat and activity left your lawn with bare patches and thin spots, then get Scott's Turf Builder Grass Seed. Fall's cool air and warm soil make it the best time to grow grass. Use Turf Builder Grass Seed to grow thicker, greener grass, guaranteed. It contains Scott's exclusive Water Smart Plus coating that absorbs 2 times more water than uncoated seeds. Feeds to jumpstart growth and protect seedlings against disease. And Scott's is the official lawn care company of Major League Baseball. Fall's the best time to grow seed and repair your yard. Pick up a bag of Scott's Turf Builder Grass Seed today. This is the Scott's Yard.
It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Great to have you with us on this Friday the 13th. I'm Adnan Golic for Greeny alongside Golic. We're Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our phone guests in the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Plenty of baseball talk to get to with Jessica Mendoza.
Crazy game, though. Really was a crazy game. 9-8. Each team had a 4-run inning in it. A lot of questionable calls as well. We went to replay, and there's still a rule out there that we think was interpreted incorrectly.
Yeah.
You know, was it? Will baseball have anything to say about it? So a lot to talk about that we'll get to.
Also look ahead to the Yankees and the Astros in the ALCS. NFL conversation, the Eagles come off a big win over the Panthers last night. Other major games look forward to, the Giants mess. But I mentioned it's Friday the 13th, so we'll do scary movies 45 minutes from now. We'll
I like that.
List
I
of
like
scary
that.
movies. And tweet us at Mike and Mike, at ESPN Golic, and at Adnan ESPN, some of your choices. Ryan Smith is going to join us in just a second. He's our ESPN legal analyst. But, Mike, you've got something more pressing.
I do. So the wife and I were shopping yesterday at the grocery store, okay? And she was doing her normal field producing, my wife Chris, and it was field producing once we went down the cookie aisle. We just happened to. We don't really buy cookies a lot anymore, but we like walking down the aisle.
Just to see what's out there.
Just to see what's out there. We always like to check out the different cookies. Well, we saw this thing. We saw Oreos. We love Oreos, and it said Mystery Oreo. So the deal with it is, it says Mystery Oreo, and then I read a little more, and it said, guess the flavor. And then I said, oh, that's cool, for a chance to win $50,000.
Ooh, it just got real.
So it did. So I got a pack, and everybody in here, and whoever the guests that we have in here.
We're a little short-staffed today, but we can still
well, then you can eat a couple. But people will come in. I want everybody, we're going to do this as a group.
Yeah.
Try it and tell me what you think the flavor is, and we'll get a consensus, and it gives me a way to enter, and I'll enter that flavor and see if we can win $50,000. So it's Mystery Oreo. I have no idea. I'm praying it doesn't taste like broccoli or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
I have no clue what it's going to taste like. So that's what we're going to do throughout the show. You know, anybody can come in and take a taste and be in on it. Whoever is in on it, we'll split the money.
I don't want to guard against. I mean, we should guard against overconfidence, but this seems like a pretty easy way to win $50,000. No,
Yeah.
I mean, how many options are there for a cookie?
But you know what it's like, and I'm going to tell you how many.
Yeah.
There's either the 8-box Crayola crayon or the 64-box.
Sky magenta cookie.
It may have some funky flavor name to it, not just,
s'mores.
Exactly, some normal flavor. They may have some other adjective words added to it, or something like that you have to get correct. So I don't know. It does seem a bit too good to be true. I'm not holding out hope we're actually going to win the $50, but
$50,000.
I'm sorry, $50,000. But here's the thing. The great side is we win $50,000. Yeah. There's no downside because we're eating cookies. Okay?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. So go ahead. You jump into one. I can go ahead and find some other things to talk about while you go ahead and try a cookie. So once again, we'll get into all the conversation with Dusty Baker and Washington Nationals and what happens next for Washington. And as I mentioned,
orangey flavor.
Yeah, what is it
to start with?
Okay, a little orangey first. Yeah. So once again, we'll get to Jessica Mendoza at 7:30. And Ryan Smith is going to join us now. Talk about a U-turn here. We're going from Golic eating Oreo cookies to now the serious business of a legal analyst. It
is kind of an orangey type of flavor. There's going to be more to it than that, I'm sure.
Okay.
Creamsicle-ish.
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
I'm waiting for the aftertaste to kick in a little. I'm going to really need – we're going to pass these out and get everybody involved. I guarantee you Ryan Smith wishes he was in studio today because not only would he be providing the legal analyst that he is, but he would be eating Oreo cookies.
He'd be our taste tester as well. Ryan Smith, the ESPN legal analyst, joining us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Ryan, you're in great shape. I don't see you being a big cookie aficionado, but if you want to make it down here, by all means, we'll give you an Oreo.
Save some for me. I love cookies. I like the black and white ones. I like the ones that are like, they got the vanilla and the chocolate.
Right.
My kids eat them like crazy, so I eat them too.
Oh, I thought you meant like the big black and white cookies, that you like those.
No, I like those too. Hey, look, get them all for me. Whatever you got.
Because I always have the conversation on how you eat the big black and white cookies. You eat the white side, the black side, start in the middle and go through.
Middle of the way.
Yeah. It's so many.
Oh, you got to do one then the other. No, you got to do one then the other. I don't know. They taste different, right? I don't know.
I do one or the other. This is great breakdown right now, yes.
I just want to see how far we're going to go with this cookie breakdown. Ezekiel Elliott, Ryan, upholding the 6-game suspension. So, listen, this story has had so many wrinkles to it. What does this actually mean? Is he actually going to be gone for 6 games?
Right now, it's not looking good for him. I mean, what this means is, he put up the good fight. But the bottom line is this court looked at this and said, NFLPA and Ezekiel Elliott, you filed this too soon. You got to exhaust all your remedies in the NFL process. And what they did was, before Harold Henderson weighed in and gave his decision, they filed this in Texas. And the reason they did that was because when Harold Henderson makes his decision, the NFL, the NFLPA, they race to whatever courthouse, whatever jurisdiction works best for them. And the NFLPA wanted Texas. So they went, tried to beat him to the punch. And it didn't work out because when it comes to the courts, they want to make sure that you get rid of everything under your CBA before you come into the courts. So the courts looked at it and said, look, we don't have jurisdiction. We can't hear this thing because you didn't exhaust everything in the NFL level before you came to us. So that's why he fought the good fight, but ultimately this wasn't a big surprise.
Oh, so, okay, all right. So I was a little confused on it. I thought there were those that were praising the union and that side of it by saying they're trying to beat the NFL to the punch on this. You're saying that actually cost them because they didn't go through the rest of the process according to the CBA before they went to the court.
Yeah, I'll put a different spin on it. What I'll say is this. I really applaud the NFLPA because they did something very interesting and different here, and they're trying to do whatever they can do to get whatever advantage they can get in court. They said, look, Harold Henderson, in his appeal, rejected a lot of the critical evidence we need to try our case properly. So in a sense, he already made his decision. In a sense, we're not able to put on the case we want to, so we're going to bring that case to Texas. And it worked for a while. So I applaud them for that. I think the reason it's not a surprise is when we first got to federal court on this, I think a lot of people were saying, me included, hey, this thing isn't ripe enough. Don't they have to finish everything in the NFL before they come to court? And that's essentially what the Court of Appeals said. So I think it was definitely worth a shot. Great positioning by the NFL Players Association, because if the appeals court ruled in their fashion, man, it was going to be tough for the NFL in terms of future suspensions, not just Elliott.
Talking right now with Ryan Smith, our legal analyst. How much is – because now you're right. Everyone's going to try to find out the next thing they can kind of do and, any Hail Mary, so to speak. Any recourse that you can see Ezekiel Elliott can do?
I think he's got a bunch of things. So it's not over yet. And I think he's going to want to fight it and do whatever he can to stay on the field. So the first thing is he can try to get the entire appeals court to hear this case. So essentially say, hey, these 3 judges, they got it wrong. I need the whole appeals court to weigh in. Problem is, they rarely agree to do that. Okay, so next step. He could try to refile this case in Texas, because essentially what the Court of Appeals did is say, hey, because you didn't finish this in the NFL process before you filed it, we're basically telling the lower court to dismiss it. So he can refile it and say, okay, I want to try the whole thing over again in Texas. I don't know how good of an option that's going to be for him since he just lost on the appellate level. So then the other option is, let's try to go to another jurisdiction. And that's what you can do in America. You don't win in one. You can go in another. Maybe he goes to New York, which is a good option for him, and try to push it there. But then the precedent there is on the NFL side. And ultimately, the sort of Hail Mary of all Hail Marys, he could try to push this to the Supreme Court. That could present an interesting situation for him, because while he would say to the Supreme Court, I want you to hear this case, but I want you to stay the ruling of the suspension while you're deciding whether you can hear it. So stop the suspension from happening and think about whether you want to hear it. Two long shots there. First, they rarely do that. Second, to get the Supreme Court to hear a case like this, I mean, it's like 1 in a million. So I think right now he's deciding between the best of some pretty tough options. And I think what they're going to try to do is find whatever they can to get a court to say, hey, let's let him play while we decide to hear this or while we decide to pursue this matter. I mean, but he's got a lot of tough options.
Our legal analyst, Ryan Smith, joining us. Now, when you say to try and let him play, right now he's suspended.
Yeah.
So starting next week, he'll be suspended. So how quickly can something like that happen? And if Zeke, and I agree with you about the union, I think they're going about this the correct way, the way they need to, and really kind of the only way they can. But if Zeke called you and said, Ryan, what should I do? What would you tell him to do?
I think he's got to take the New York option, and he's got to argue the preliminary injunction and the temporary restraining order, and he's got to make sort of the same arguments he made in Texas. And he's got to say, look, you got to stop this. This is a case that I have a chance of winning overall, so you got to stay the suspension. You got to let me play while you decide to hear this and hope for the same result that he got in Texas from that lower court judge. But it's a tough road to hoe for him because New York, the precedent's on their side. You talk about Brady, other cases where it's gone favorably for the NFL in New York. So I think that's his best option. Now, you talk about timing. Here's the thing. They put out a statement saying they're going to take a couple of days and try to figure this out. Well, a couple of days, what does that put you to Monday, Tuesday? Now you're looking for a court to not only decide to hear your case but grant a stay that fast. It's possible. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I'm going to say it's challenging because this is now, you've now got precedent saying that, at least from this court in Texas, this wasn't the right thing to do. So now you're refiling, you're coming at it better and maybe in a different way, but I don't know if that's a winning option for him. I just think it's probably the best option, but I think right now the NFL's got they've got the odds on their side by far.
So last question for me, and this is the part where I really need your help on it, is do you just exhaust every opportunity, or does that in the end at all, and this is what I don't know, hurt you by going through all this process and then you keep losing? Is that bad for this whole process down the road, as the other side of it at some point just saying, you know what, we're just going to take the 6 games and we're going to move on? Does it hurt you to keep trying and losing?
Yeah, you know what? I love it because you're thinking like a lawyer. It's a tough call because you got it, Mike. You're channeling lawyers now. I love it. Because here's why. You make a great point. If you keep going to court and trying and you lose and lose and lose, what the NFL gets is a precedent base to argue against you every time you come. So now you've got Brady, you've got this, you've got Peterson, all these cases. The NFL is like, this is great. I'm just building up a bunch of precedents to say that every time the Players Association wants to go to federal court, I win. I win on the Brady issue. I win on the stay. If athletes think, hey, you know what, I shouldn't have been suspended, I'm going to try to get a stay, there's the precedent. They're going to point to it in their cases the next time around. So that's the problem. I do think you keep trying, and here's why. And this is what I think the NFL Players Association is doing very well. They're using different theories each time. Last time, it was the sort of analysis used on Brady and the way they went about pursuing this. That was wrong. This time, it was withholding evidence from the commissioner. So the commissioner, in a sense, didn't have a chance to make the decision based on the totality of all the evidence. As long as they can keep coming up with new theories, and guys, be frank with you, that's what lawyers are paid to do. They're paid to come up with new theories. As long as they can keep doing that, the NFL Players Association, even if they lose, can constantly argue, well, yeah, we lost that one, but that was a different sort of issue than we're arguing now. I know it sounds very lawyerly, legalese and all that, but the bottom line to it is, if you can come up with something different to say in court, if you can come up with a different way of approaching it, then even if you lose, the courts, when you try to bring it the next time, you just find a different way, and maybe the precedent won't be so bad against you. So even though the NFL is building up this level of precedent, you could still keep making the argument and trying to fight the good fight.
Excellent insight, as always, from Ryan Smith. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Smith TV. Back-to-back Fridays, you've had to carry me, my man. I know you do a great job on Outside the Lines, and we appreciate it.
Pay me in cookies. I'll take chocolate chips.
Oreo cookies on the way to Ryan Smith.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
It's a tough call, Adnan. I mean, I understand completely what the union is doing. A lot of times this is the only recourse they have when you have a decision and the appeal goes back to the league or, someone appointed by Roger Goodell, in this case, Henderson, that then the next thing you have, the only recourse you have is court. And we know DeMaurice Smith was a lawyer, a litigating lawyer. So, that's kind of where he knows his stuff, but a lot of it is their only option. So I get it. I get what they're trying to do. They got to try and get their wins where they can. It's just very difficult when you have that CBA and basically the league, the NFL can just say, hey, court, we got a CBA, and the court says, yeah, they got a CBA. It's very, very difficult to go beyond that.
In NFL terms, it feels like the fourth quarter, and we've hit the 2-minute warning. Like, he's pretty much out of options here. Like Ryan said, go to the New York courts, give it a chance.
Right,
but I feel like it's inevitable at this point.
Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott is going to miss that time. Before the NBA season tips off, by the way, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver will join Mike and Mike at 9 a.m. Eastern on Monday. Amazing to think the NBA season is right around the corner. So looking forward to having Adam Silver here with Greeny and Golic on Monday morning. Adnan working for Greeny today. We're Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
I got an interesting tweet as again, at the bottom of the hour, Jessica Mendoza will join us. We'll get back into baseball. I got a great tweet about with the games coming up this week.
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought at the beginning of the season would anybody have talked about the Rams going to Jacksonville?
Ran two, both of them.
It's so true. I mean, that is such a great tweet because you're right. I know last year there were a lot of people that picked Jacksonville and they didn't pan out, so I think people were hesitant this year.
Yeah.
And certainly with the Rams, it was like, well, okay, you got to revamp your offensive line. What kind of heavy hitters? You get a couple on offense, even though Sammy Watkins isn't happy with the offense. And how is Jared Goff going to come along? Well, questions answered on defense in Jacksonville. What you got to love is when you put money into free agents and they pay off, and then you hit the right draft picks and they pay off. That's a good job of scouting and picking. Both in the free agent world and in the draft of what they've done defensively. And Jared Goff, boy, different coaching staff, how he's come along. I'm really looking forward to this game.
Goff was historically bad last year, Mike. He got such a pounding. People were like, wow, because he felt like a can't-miss guy coming out of college, and he struggled so mightily. And now he's looked good, 61% completion, the 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. That's a legit, solid offense. But I wanted to further the point about Jacksonville. You mentioned it in passing to Herm Edwards. You talk about great defenses right now in football. You say Broncos, you say Seahawks, and you say the Jags. Specifically that secondary, they're unbelievable. You look at the numbers, Blake Bortles actually has not improved. They're still getting middling play from their quarterback, but this is a case where you draft a running back and you know what you're getting in Leonard Fournette. Big body between the tackles. He's enhanced Jacksonville, and combined with that defense, that is a winnable division. I think what's one of the best parts of being a sports fan is when a team is bad, finally takes the next step. The Royals were so bad for so long, they win the World Series. It was great to see in 2015, 30-year drought. Jacksonville is continually a laughing stock. Cleveland is continuing a laughing stock. The Browns are still 0-5. They stink. But Jacksonville at 3-2, I'm telling you, if they win that division, that would be amazing to see. And they're doing it because of that great defense and that running game of Fournette.
They really are. 20 sacks already. I mean, what they're doing. They have 10 interceptions already as well. Right. Pressure, I mean, on all levels. All levels, from pressure from that front line. The linebackers are very athletic, and you've talked about that secondary and what they've done between the draft and free agency. Mm-hmm. It is really fun to watch, and you just – they have to win in spite of their quarterback. They just do.
Yes, which is crazy. It's a quarterback-driven league, and they're winning in spite of their quarterback.
I hate saying it all the time. I really do. I mean, Blake Bortles, again, his number 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
But he's average. He's not winning
he's completing.
Games.
No, he's not. He's completing 54% of his passes.
That's awful.
As I said, he's not going to be the quarterback there next year, but this is a team that can win the division this year.
Yes.
To me, the interesting thing is, so how far can they get this year? And then where do they go for the quarterback? Because it's just not going to be Blake next year. Mm-hmm. So what do? I mean, if you talk about drafting a quarterback, you don't want to start a rookie with this team that you have. You'll have Fournette going into a second year, an offensive line you're building better,
make
great
a trade
defense.
for Alex Smith.
Alex Smith, how about make a trade for Eli Manning? If the Giants are that bad and they get an early pick, well, the Giants want to move on. Yeah. They have Webb, who they got in the 3rd round. Mm-hmm. Would they draft a quarterback, one of these quarterbacks coming out, depending on if the grade is high enough? And would Jacksonville do something like that with Tom Coughlin down there? There is no doubt in my mind Jacksonville is going to want a veteran quarterback next year. There's no way they're going to want to draft a rookie quarterback and start him.
You don't think Eli Manning's a little long in the tooth now?
Well, he may be long in the tooth, but, man, you're looking to cash in on the way this defense is playing.
Window?
just a couple of years, see what you do while you're gearing up for another quarterback or whatever else your option would be. Alex Smith, maybe.
I think I'd take him.
Mahomes takes over in Kansas City, because Alex Smith has certainly given Andy Reid something to think about,
right?
Isn't he?
But I think no matter what, Mahomes is going to be the guy. You wouldn't trade up and make that kind of a move.
If Kansas City, though, makes a run to the Super Bowl and Alex Smith has his best year, he's having his best year in 13 years, are you going to say, hey, Alex, thanks for the memories? I mean,
we have this plan in place. Sorry.
Mahomes isn't going anywhere. You know what I mean? A guy named Aaron Rodgers sat for 4 years.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I mean, would you really give up on that or to start the Mahomes era? I know we're jumping ahead now, but to me that would be an interesting thought. Either way, Alex Smith is setting himself up nice if he's not there to be somewhere else.
Maybe Jacksonville could sign Kirk Cousins.
That's right. For a lot of money.
Washington doesn't want to give him the long-term deal. Yeah. We all know that. He's probably going to be overpaid, even though he's a really good quarterback.
Will there be a bidding war then between San Francisco and Jacksonville for Kirk Cousins? Because they're looking for a quarterback. It's going to be interesting.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha. Night. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Adnan Golic for Greeny today alongside Golic from Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, where we're going to go to Jessica Mendoza in just a minute. But in case you're just joining us, mystery Oreos is the topic of the day.
Yeah, my wife and I were shopping, and she was doing a little field producing. We were going down the cookie aisle, and we saw the Oreos, and there's always different flavors. Well, they had mystery flavor. And if you guess the mystery flavor, you can win $50,000. So I have given cookies out to everybody here. And it's a shame we just had Ryan Smith on the phone. He wasn't here. Jessica Mendoza is going to wish she was here and not on the phone to try these Oreos. And we're getting some great, interesting guesses. We're going to get a consensus from creamsicle to orange sherbet to Fruit Loops.
How about Fruity Pebbles?
Fruity Pebbles was an awesome guess.
Yes.
And Tricks. Tricks are for kids.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
And all these cereals I've eaten, and they all kind of taste the same. But we're going to try to get to a consensus here as we keep just plowing through this bag of Oreo cookies.
You know, like when you make like freshly baked cookies, and just that aroma wafts in. This is like a punch in the face.
It is.
It's an orange scent that immediately comes at you.
And some of the guys, the palettes that these guys, it came in with an orange taste, and then it blossomed into fruity. I'm loving these guys, how they're explaining the cookie tasting.
Bunch of foodies all over here.
Yeah, there you go.
Mike, no question. Well, unfortunately, Jessica Mendoza is not here to taste test cookies, but she is all over the Major League Baseball action. Of course, Jess always does a great job on Sunday Night Baseball, and she was calling Game 5 last night with Dave Fleming. Jess, good morning to you.
Good morning, Oreo. What are we doing here? This is awesome.
I know. You have kids. I'm sure you have Oreos in your house.
Absolutely, right?
Oh, my gosh. We've got all kinds of good stuff, and I can't wait to get back there since this has been an epic 5-game series. It's been a long time since I've been home.
Yeah, away from the cookies, you got to get back to them.
Seriously, get back to Cali when you can. But, Jess, we have to start with that Osh Bowl Nationals rally in the 8th. Jose Lobaton picked off at first base, originally ruled safe, but was overturned on replay. The Nats never recovered. Mike and I were both saying, by the letter of the law, that's the correct call. His foot did come off, and Rizzo did have the tag on. But it feels like an awfully cruel way in which the Nationals were not able to score any runs that inning. What did you make of it as you were seeing it unfold?
I hated it. Just because, and it's not because I'm pulling for the Nats. It wasn't. It was just because this is, to me, like, it's twofold. First of all, Jose Lobaton, you can't get picked. You just absolutely, and you know that. But his secondary lead, getting hung out there, and I'm sorry, even Davey Lopes, who I love, first base coach, like a mention, hey, this Cubs team loves the back pick. They back pick more than anyone else in baseball. Just a mention there to put it in his head, a guy who really doesn't see a lot of playing time, just to give him a heads up. So that's the first. But the second is, like, that's where I don't like replay. Because, it's one thing if you see that he did get picked and he didn't get back in time. He got back in time. His foot must have just barely, we're talking centimeters, somehow popped up what Rizzo. That's not what the rule of replay was created for, especially in that moment. I just feel like it changed the total complexity of what the Nationals were trying to do in rallying back, at least as a fan of baseball. you wanted to see what Trey Turner was going to do as a bat, and I felt like it got stolen away because of that pick.
Yeah, I get what you're saying because he got back in time. His foot was on the bag. But if you're going to have replay, you're going to unfortunately have to make that call and say foot was off, tag was on. He was out. How about the play behind the plate with Wieters and the third strike, the pass ball? He gets hit with the bat. Jessica, we were reading the rule, and it sounds like either way it should have been called a dead ball. Now, whether the ump wanted to say that it stopped Wieters from being able to do anything from the play interference or not, wasn't interference on his part. It should have been a dead ball once the bat hit the catcher. What was your take on that?
Absolutely, and it was such a weird play because usually that's created because then the ball doesn't become, a pass ball. But the ball had already gotten by him. Then he got hit. So it made it incredibly confusing, but then he overthrows it and the error is created, and that's when the runs come in. So it was something that literally this game could not have seen more weird, more unusual, sloppy, just all of it. And that was a play, too, that, first of all, Matt Wieters, he had an awful game. And he's there because of his defense. He struggled offensively the entire season. And not only did he have that pass ball, he had another one on the changeup that got by him. He had a catcher's interference. He had a missed throw down to second base when he should have picked Kyle Schwarber, who was halfway to second. There was so many plays that, to be honest, the Nationals took themselves out of the game. And that's what was hard to watch, was just to see a team that should have won a game and literally almost did everything that they could to not win.
Yeah, the misadjudication of that rule led to 2 Cubs runs. We're talking with Jessica Mendoza right now on Mike and Mike, ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Having said all of that, Jess, I still think that there's this collective feeling for Washington, of course, they just cannot get over this Herculean hump. And you go back to 2010 when Strasburg didn't pitch, Drew Storen blew it. You think about Matt Williams prematurely pulling Jordan Zimmerman out of that game. And now this year, we knew it was going to be a tough matchup against the Cubs. I think you and I both felt hard-fought 5-game series, but inevitably they cannot get over that hump. And probably the biggest shock for me was Max Scherzer comes in and didn't look good at all. What do you do if you're the Nationals? How do you correct this? Because Bryce Harper could be gone a year from now.
I think that's what we were talking about is, was this at the arc of this run that the Nationals have been on? Was this at the peak? And here they had their best chance to finally just win one series in the postseason with all the talent, with all the names, with everything that this Nationals team has. And to see it just literally fall through the fingertips, and so much of it literally is it's almost like there's a giant block of I'm sorry, you guys cannot get past this NLDS. And to be here in D.C. especially, guys, it took us probably an hour just to try to get a ride to get, how it is after post-game, these kind of, so we're just walking around with D.C. fans, talking, having conversations, and tears and just absolutely, people have their heads in their hands, just like, how can this happen again? And that's when it really gets real, is this city, it's been 19 years since any team has won anything. But to know how good this Nationals team is, and how much better, to be honest, they were than the Cubs, but not see them advance, it's the beauty of the postseason, but it's also the heartbreak when you're here in the city and you see the reality. All
right, Jess, let's go on to the CSs and stay right in the National League as the Cubs go to play the Dodgers, who themselves have trouble getting over the hump. So how do you generally overall see this series?
I think the Dodgers were watching last night just yes. Yes. Clapping their hands, cheering. In every way. Just even if the Nationals won, Cubs, everybody was. You should see my scorecard. It's a mess. And think about how they beat the Diamondbacks and how that division series went, because look at the wild card, right? So if you go back to the Diamondbacks versus the Rockies in that game alone and how similar it was to this game as far as just offense going back and forth, some errors, just the emotions, just who's going to win this game? And then you think about how exhausted the D-backs were and never recovered. I'm not saying the Cubs aren't going to recover and they're not going to be able to find their way. If anyone can, the defending champs know how to emotionally handle being able to come back. But everybody was used last night. So I think the Dodgers have a huge advantage, at least the first couple games. Then I think we'll settle, especially because it's a 7-game series, and it'll get good. But right now the Dodgers have to be sitting happy at least with how this game played out.
And then the Yankees heading to Houston this evening, game 1 of the ALCS against the Astros. Dallas Keuchel has been great against the Yankees. Masahiro Tanaka, though, was excellent in game 3. It's amazing to think, Jess, that the Yankees pulled off that comeback against the Indians, and Aaron Judge looks so lost at the plate. I hope he can step it up, because this feels like this is 1-2 in the MVP conversation. He and Jose Altuve, and, of course, Altuve was fabulous against the Red Sox. But how do you handicap this series?
I think what's interesting is, your mind kind of goes back to 2 years ago with the AL wildcard game of Tanaka versus Keuchel. It was a very different Tanaka then, too. He had the advantage as far as he was really the dominant pitcher, had a really good season. This year it's been the opposite. He has not been the ace. He's struggled. And you're right, his last 2 starts have been really good. His split fastball has been ridiculous, his slider. But Dallas Keuchel, there's something about him against this Yankees team, and he has that confidence. Literally, even talking to a lot of the Astros, they're so happy. Think about it. How happy are they that they're not facing the Indians? And yes, the Yankees, you never want to negate what they can do, what their lineup can do. Aaron Judge could wake up at any point. And for this series, Adnan, you're so right, because, there's so many dynamic players on the Astros, but when I think about Jose Altuve and Aaron Judge just kind of being, kind of honing in on 2 very, first of all, there's like 5 feet difference between the 2 of them. Very, very different styles. And it's almost the beauty of the game. Like, if I'm a 10-year-old kid watching this game and I'm thinking about what makes a baseball player good, you've got 2 very opposite styles that show you that the beauty of this game doesn't matter the size, doesn't matter how you hit. You could strike out 16 times in one series and still come back and have a great presence. Or you can be Altuve and be able to make contact with anything, a ball at your ankles, a ball over your head, and put it in play and get hit. So I love this matchup because it's Tanaka and Keuchel, but I also love it because we're seeing a lot of the different types of offense these 2 teams can provide.
And if you like major markets for Major League Baseball, the 4 largest U.S. cities all have a team in the LCS. Wow. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston. So that is good news, certainly, if you like big markets, right?
Love that.
Jessica Mendoza, thanks so much for the insight, Jess. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jess. Go get a cookie.
Yeah. I know. I'm getting home. Thanks, guys.
You notice I wasn't asking anything about that American League series because I don't care.
Right. I was
born and raised in Cleveland.
Still, I know.
I don't
You're still
care.
upset. I know. It was frustrating. Look, and I don't want to add to this, but the fact that Kluber once again didn't pitch well, that's the shock to me, right? If you said Encarnacion's hurt, he's banged up, fine. Jose Ramirez disappeared. Lindor didn't step up. But Kluber, you think, one bad start, fine. That's an aberration. He's going to bounce back.
I didn't hear a word you just said.
All right, once again, we will turn our attention back to the world of sports. The Eagles with a nice victory over the Panthers. Of course, Major League Baseball, the Nationals and Cubs went 4 hours and 37 minutes, but it was the Cubs who emerged victorious. They will then be taking on the Dodgers in the NLCS. ALCS has said Astros and Yankees gets underway tonight. But it is Friday the 13th, Mike, so in the interest of mixing things up a little bit, we'll talk about scary movies. First, though, In the Zone brought to you by AutoZone. So Auburn LSU, looking forward to that game. Jarrett Stidham is a guy. Auburn, I think people forgot about the fact they've got a great defense.
Yes, they do.
They lost to Clemson 14-6, and Stidham didn't look very good. And all of a sudden, people put him away. But I think he's going to be important, and the reason why is running back Kerryon Johnson. Because now you've got him and Cam Petway. Johnson coming off a 204-yard rushing performance last week against Ole Miss. He actually leads the nation in rushing touchdowns with 12. Think about that. Yeah. Bryce Love, as good as he's been, Saquon Barkley. Yep. Instead, Johnson's the guy leading with touchdowns. If the 10th-ranked Tigers are going to win this weekend in Death Valley, Auburn's going to need a big performance from that run.
I'm looking forward to that game. LSU kind of been hot and cold. The Booger used to play for LSU. I got him a couple of games ago for really kind of soft play, he thought, on the lines up front, offensive line, defensive line, which seemed odd, taking the personality of their coach at Orgeron, that he would be that guy that the players loved him and loved playing for him. And for a while, it was like all of a sudden everybody's looking at Ed Orgeron's buyout number. Yeah. How quickly, things can change, and we'll see. This is a monster test for them. And Auburn's a team a lot of people are saying, hey, they're the team that's going to give Bama all they can handle at the end of the year.
That Iron Bowl, I think, now is going to be tremendous. As long as they can get that offense going, especially with that running back and Kerryon Johnson, things could be different. All right, more college football conversation coming up later. Stu Goss is going to join us 10 minutes from now, always entertaining from the Dan Le Batard Show, giving various takes from the sports world. But since it is Friday the 13th, scariest movies. I say to you, Mike, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen? Your answer would be?
I go The Exorcist.
I was going to say classic.
Because I was certainly younger when I saw it, so the effect it had on me when I saw it, it's
spinning head, the crucifix.
Oh, my gosh. The voice coming out of it, just, and again, a lot of it had to do with I was a lot younger, because, I am a monster fan of horror films. But that one, I think, again, because of how old I was and seeing it, and I was scared to death of that thing. Absolutely there's the horror, blood and gore, Chainsaw Massacre, and that whole
Jason,
thing.
Friday the 13th,
all that of the gore and the chopping up and stuff, of which hopefully still someday I'll get killed in a movie, because that's my goal. But then there's just the scary, just where you're watching and you're going,
yes,
oh my God, I am scared to death. And The Exorcist did that to me.
Exorcist is a great one. The Shining, I feel that way.
Yes.
Stanley Kubrick, just so creepy, so chilling. You don't know what's happening to Jack Nicholson. And then he goes berserk with the whole Hey Johnny bit. Diana Rossini, of course, does a great job on SportsCenter. She tweeted in The Strangers with Liv Tyler. I'm not familiar with that movie, but she says she knows the horror genre. There's a few other tweets there mentioning The Strangers. The Others is one with Nicole Kidman people mentioned.
Right.
Blair Witch Project, which at the time was scary. Now it's become a parody. Right? The close-ups, it was so funny.
That made me want to throw up.
All the shaking cam was just way too much, right?
Deal with it.
But it's the amount of people, the preponderance of people who actually thought it was real. You don't understand how many people were like, wow, I can't believe I saw this documentary, Blair Witch Project. They thought it was legit at the time.
Does it add to you if it's a horror movie that can happen? Like, can someone be, someone possessed?
Right.
As opposed to just, blood and gore and just chopping for the sake of chopping, and don't open that door, you're going to get a stake in the eye, or the Saw. There's another Saw coming out, which, by the way, I can't wait for, because I love that stuff.
Right.
But a horror movie that can actually happen, would it scare you more?
I think so. I think that adds an element to the realism to it, because the next time you're going to bed, you're like, well, hang on, we're in the woods. There's a cabin in the woods. Who knows what can happen?
I'm really not worried about Freddy Krueger coming up through my sheets, to get me or anything like that.
Although Freddy Krueger, when I was 9 and I saw Nightmare on Elm Street,
he's one of the great.
It is a terrifying character.
Oh, because of the way he plays a character. It's funny, the whole deal. Yeah, funny before he killed.
A lot of people are talking about It, the new remake, which has been a huge box office.
Did you like that?
I haven't seen it. I saw the Tim.
Oh, you
Curry
haven't
original.
seen it?
I haven't seen the latest one.
Oh, okay. I liked it.
I heard it was well done. I do like the horror genre.
I did like it. I thought the Pennywise was really good.
Yeah, movies that are not necessarily considered horror movies, of course, but just scary, or maybe startling, I should say, suspenseful. Sixth Sense, people were mentioning. That great ending is chilling.
Right.
Cape Fear is terrifying. Robert De Niro as Max Cady.
Did you pick a favorite horror? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, mine
horror?
would be The Shining.
It would.
Yeah,
okay.
but I'm with you on The Exorcist as well. I think those are both terrifying movies.
Yeah.
And in fact, like a movie that still gives me nightmares when I think about it, Freddy Got Fingered. That movie is just terrifying. Seeing Tom Green and Rip Torn in that movie. Like, bad movies should count as horror movies, too. That movie is so scary. Coming up next, Stugatz Tell Us Who's Better, Todd Zieler, Todd Frazier, and he'll try to get me with a net workout. It's Mike and Mike.